between taking it easy and pushing hard. Let's see how Dual Lambert handles it.
Dual Lambert has completed their outlap. The adrenaline is pumping. JP Brand is on their outlap, warming up the tires and getting ready to put in a fast lap time.
They will want to get a good gap established for their first flying lap.
That's the outlap done for JP Brand. They'll now look to focus on their first flying lap. JP Brand appears focused and prepared driving through Castrol. Richard Reshka is on their outlap. Richard Reshka is driving through back straight. It's all about strategy in these early moments. Kenneth Ella is taking their time to prepare for their qualifying run and get everything just right. Kenneth Ella is looking relatively composed going through back straight.
There's not much better than sitting near here and watching the cars speed by.
It looks like Warren Dodd is getting ready to make their move. They're taking their time to warm up those tires and get everything just right.
These are the moments that really matter. Let's see if Warren Dodd can deliver.
Warren Dodd appears focused and prepared driving through back straight. You can feel the tension building. Kenneth Ella is out on track and getting ready to push for their qualifying time. Kenneth Ella is driving through Castrol.
There's a spot near here where the teenagers sneak off to make out.
There are just over 5 minutes left in this relatively composed going through Stanek. Taihan Van Ruyen appears focused and prepared driving through back straight.
I have always loved this section of the track.
The pressure is on in this qualifying session, but Richard Reshka is rising to the occasion. Richard Reshka is driving through Sabat. Jano van der Westhuizen looks to be off the pace. Annie, what do you think they need to do to improve? It seems like Jano van der Westhuizen is struggling, currently 0.11 off their best pace. It's clear that Warren Dodd is pushing Thiercard to the very edge of traction on this qualifying lap. Warren Dodd is looking relatively composed going through Castrol.
There's not much better than sitting near here and watching the cars speed by.
Warren Dodd appears focused and prepared driving through Sabah.
There's a spot near here where the teenagers sneak off to make out.
Danny Van Ruyen is up minus 0.2. Danny Van Ruyen is driving through Stanek.
Spectators near here can smell the smoke wafting from nearby grills.
Duald Lambert is not as quick as they were hoping for. Annie, any thoughts on what they need to do? Kenneth Ella is on their first flying lap. Kenneth Ella is not able to keep their pace consistent. So far they're 0.58 seconds down. Richard Reshka looks to be off the pace. Annie, what do you think they need to do to improve?
Every driver needs something different, Peter. Some drivers excel when they push harder, while other drivers benefit more from relaxing and being in a flow state.
JP Brand is not as quick as they were hoping for. Annie, any thoughts on what they need to do?
Well, Peter, they'll need to find those extra tenths of a second by pushing just a little bit harder on the braking and carrying more speed through the corners.
JP Brand is looking relatively composed going through Volkswagen. Ernest Heather looks to be off the pace. Annie, what do you think they need to do to improve? Ernest Heather appears focused and prepared driving through Castrol. Warren Dodd is not as quick as they were hoping for. Annie, any thoughts on what they need to do? Warren Dodd has some work to do as that 155.820 is only good enough for now. Warren Dodd is now up minus 0.22 in Castrol. A solid qualifying performance by Jacobus Basson, positioning them in 8th at the moment. The question now is whether they can make further progress and challenge the frontrunners. It seems like Jacobus Basson is struggling, currently 0.11 off their best pace. Richard Reshka has secured a respectable third in the qualifying session. This is a great spot to use as a launchpad for a strong race performance. Richard Reshka will be happy having put themselves into third in this qualifying session.
Every fraction of a second counts. I'm sure they can find a little extra in there.
It's an impressive showing by JP Brand, currently in 6th. They've showcased their talent, but will need to find those crucial extra tenths to climb higher.
Spot on analysis, Peter. JP Brand has positioned themselves well in 6th. It's now crucial for them to maintain their focus and defend their position in the upcoming race.
A dominant display by Danny Van Ruyen in this qualifying session. They have put in a stunning lap time and find themselves at the Danny Van Ruyen will be happy having put themselves into first in this qualifying session.
It may be difficult for them to improve further on that. Sometimes trying too hard makes you slower. They need to drive smooth and smart.
A solid performance from Ernest Heather as they currently hold position 7. However, with the session coming to a close, they'll need to find that extra bit of speed if they want to move up the grid.
You hit the nail on the head, Peter. Ernest Heather's current position of 7th is a testament to their skill and determination. Now, they must stay sharp to make the most of this opportunity.
JP Brand has some work to do as that 116.56. There's a little bit of wind in the air today here at Killarney International Raceway, as we're getting ready to get things underway. Our second place starter, Taihan Van Ruyen, is poised to make a move towards the front.
They are in a good place to mount a good challenge come the first corner.
Richard Reshka is going to be starting from third. The fourth place on the grid belongs to Dewald Lambert, a driver with plenty of experience.
Dewald Lambert will be taking no prisoners today.
Our fifth place starter for today's race is none other than Warren Dodd.
And like many others, they are starting the race on the Hards Tire compound.
Starting from sixth on the grid is a good position for JP Brand to launch an attack.
We've not seen the best from JP Brand yet.
The seventh starting position belongs to Ernest Heather, who will be looking to make up ground early on. Lining up in eighth is Jano van der Westhuizen. With so many cars close together, the risk of an early accident is real.
Staying out of trouble in these early moments is crucial. It's a fine line between pushing hard and staying safe.
Having started in 1, Danny Van Ruyen will be looking to establish themselves in this race. As the tires come up to temp, their available grip is changing, and the drivers that manage this transition best are likely to make progress through the field.
It all comes down to this, Peter, where the rubber meets the road. There's no more time for talk, no more practice. The teams have done all they can. Now it comes down to Richard Reshka to bring it home.
They say the early bird catches the worm, and Jano van der Westhuizen is proving it today. snatching up positions right from the get-go.
I'm sure they're grinning from ear to ear, but they'll need to stay focused, as there's still a long way to go, Peter.
The tension is building as Ernest Heather trails behind Warren Dodd. The gap is slowly but surely decreasing, and the pressure is mounting. Warren Dodd is pushing to maintain the lead, while Ernest Heather is working to close in and challenge for the position.
It's a nail-biting race for sure, with both drivers showing incredible skill and determination. But Warren Dodd is not going to give up their position easily. This is going to be a battle to the very end, with Ernest Heather in P7 doing everything they can to catch up.
The pursuit is on. Jacobus Bisson is closing the gap on JP Brand, determined to claim P8.
This is where every inch counts. Jacobus Bisson is pushing hard to close the gap on JP Brand. Absolutely, precision and control are key here. Knowing when to push and when to hold back can be the difference between winning and losing.
The crowd is on its feet as Richard Reschke chases down Jano van der Westhuizen through Stanek.
This battle between Richard Reschke and Jano van der Westhuizen is so intense, you could cut the tension with a knife, or should I say, with a front wing.
The race is really heating up. Ernest Heather is hunting down Warren Dodd with everything they've got.
With just 0.3 seconds between them, Ernest Heather will need to close the gap to have hopes of a pass.
JP Brand seems to be putting the pressure on Ernest Heather. Tough break for JP Brand, who has just lost a position.
Definitely, but JP Brand is a skilled driver, and they have what it takes to fight back and regain that position.
The battle for 4 is heating up as Richard Reschke tries to catch Jano van der Westhuizen in P4. Ernest Heather is on a mission, chasing Warren Dodd, who's desperately trying to stay ahead.
Ernest Heather is looking to close the 0.3 second gap and make a pass.
And Ernest Heather has just... And they're off, with drivers now facing the unpredictability of the opening line. With so many cars close together, the risk of an early accident is real.
Staying out of trouble in these early moments is crucial. It's a fine line between pushing hard and staying safe.
Look at that. Richard Reschke is hot on the tail of Jano van der Westhuizen.
The mental game is just as important here. Richard Reschke must keep their cool while putting pressure on Jano van der Westhuizen.
And Jacobus Bisson has just lost the place to Ernest. Breaking news, folks. Looks like that's a mistake from Kenneth Ella. This could be costly. Richard Reschke is giving it their all as they chase down Jano van der Westhuizen in P4.
You can see that car bouncing around as they ride the curbs. It's a risky move that could end in disaster.
In racing, anything can, and usually does, happen, especially in such an epic showdown. This is where the race gets really interesting. Richard Reschke is closing in on Jano van der Westhuizen.
Don't forget the role of aerodynamics. Richard Reschke should use slipstreaming to their advantage and close the gap to Jano van der Westhuizen.
This one's going to be tough. Ernest Heather is getting their elbows out, and there may not be enough time left for Jacobus Bisson to make a move. It's neck and neck, the closest battle we've seen in a while.
When I was racing, we had a saying, if you're not living on the edge, you're taking up too much space. Jacobus Bisson is definitely living on the edge today.
The race is heating up as Ernest Heather in 8th closes in on JP Brand. The gap is just over a second, and I'm sure they are going to do everything possible to try and close the distance. They're not giving up without a fight.
It's moments like these that make motorsports so exciting. We're witnessing a battle of skill and strategy between two great drivers, with Ernest Heather in 8th determined to catch up. But we know JP Brand isn't just going to hand it to them on a plate. Ernest Heather is going to have to take it. It should be an interesting battle to watch as long as they can close that gap.
It's a classic case of chasing down the car ahead for Jacobus Besson, who is currently in P9. But Ernest Heather is not making it easy, and the gap remains over a second. This will require some expert driving from Jacobus Besson. The delta between Tijhan van Ruyen in second and Danny van Ruyen remains over a second, but Tijhan van Ruyen is not letting up. They're pushing hard and looking for any opportunity to close that gap. There's 6 minutes left in this session to make that happen.
Indeed, the anticipation is high as Tijhan van Ruyen tries to reel in Danny van Ruyen. But Danny van Ruyen is not making it easy, maintaining a consistent pace. Tijhan van Ruyen needs to find a little extra speed to bring the fight to Danny van Ruyen and move up the field.
Warren Dodd has been served a big slice of Eat My breaking news, folks. Looks like that's a mistake from Kenneth Ella. This could be costly. Tijhan van Ruyen is running second. They're trying to catch Danny van Ruyen. It doesn't seem like things are going to plan for Jacobus Besson as they have a big gap ahead of them to close at this point in time. It seems like Jacobus Besson is struggling. Their last lap time was a bit off the pace of Ernest Heather.
Hopefully Jacobus Besson can find some of that time they are losing and get it back.
This is where the skill and experience of the drivers really come into play. Ernest Heather will need to stay focused and keep pushing, even when the gap seems insurmountable. It's not over until the checkered flag drops. Things don't seem to be going Tijhan van Ruyen's way in this race, as that's a big gap they'll have to close to even be in with a shout for gaining a place here. Tijhan van Ruyen needs to find some speed, or maybe get more consistent. They have just put in a slower lap than Danny van Ruyen.
It will be interesting to see if Danny van Ruyen can keep outpacing Tijhan van Ruyen.
Well, it doesn't look like Jacobus Besson is going to be much of a threat to anyone soon, let alone Ernest Heather.
It's not over till the checkered flag drops though, and it's important they don't lose concentration at this point.
The gap between Danny van Ruyen and Tijhan van Ruyen is pretty substantial right now. It's probably going to take a mistake from Danny van Ruyen to even allow Tijhan van Ruyen to get a look in.
They certainly aren't going to be close enough to mount any kind of challenge soon unless it's down to a mistake from Danny van Ruyen.
Danny van Ruyen is placed first at the moment.
Definitely, but they can't get too comfortable. There are plenty of other drivers who are gunning for that position, and Danny van Ruyen has to keep pushing to stay on the pace.
It's a game of cat and mouse out there, with JP Brand trying to find the perfect opportunity to make a move on Richard Reshka. The gap is over a second, but every fraction counts. It's a battle of wills out there, with Taihan Van Ruyen trying to outsmart and outmaneuver Danny Van Ruyen. The gap is slowly closing, but time is running out. Situations like these often lead to a dramatic finish. It looks like JP Brand is pushing hard to catch up to Richard Reshka. That's not a small gap, but JP Brand has what it takes to challenge for the position. Taihan Van Ruyen has a mountain to climb at the moment to close that gap with Danny Van Ruyen. I expect their only hope at this point is that Danny Van Ruyen makes an error. JP Brand is pushing really hard, but as we know, pushing too hard can lead to other mistakes, like locking up the brakes or missing a shift. These drivers are walking a razor's edge between pushing the limits and making costly errors.
Absolutely, it's all about finding that sweet spot where you're pushing the car to its limits without crossing the line into reckless driving. That's where experience and skill come into play.
A strong showing from Dewald Lambert, who is currently third. Looks like JP Brand is really pushing it to the limit. They're taking those curves aggressively, but that can unsettle the car and cause handling issues.
Indeed, taking too much curb can upset the car's balance, leading to oversteer or understeer. It's all about maintaining that fine line between speed and control.
A solid performance from Jano van der Westhuizen, who is holding down fourth. It's a thrilling pursuit as JP Brand is right behind Richard Reshka, keeping the pressure on for fifth place. The gap between JP Brand and Richard Reshka is getting smaller. Things don't seem to be going Taihan Van Ruyen's way in this race, as that's a big gap they'll have to close to even be in with a shout for gaining a place here. Coming into back straight, the fight for fifth is heating up. Neither driver wants to be the first to blink. A great pass for JP Brand as they pick off other drivers and move up the field. Meanwhile, Richard Reshka has lost ground. Hold on to your hats, folks. Richard Reshka is right on the heels of JP Brand, and we're in for a wild ride. An impressive showing from Richard Reshka, who has gained positions and left JP Brand in the dust. Oh dear, Richard Reshka has dropped down to sixth. The tension is building as Taihan Van Ruyen trails behind Danny Van Ruyen. The gap is slowly but surely decreasing, and the pressure is mounting. Danny Van Ruyen is pushing to maintain the lead, while Taihan Van Ruyen is working to close in and challenge for the position.
It's going to be tough for Taihan Van Ruyen, as Danny Van Ruyen seems to have found their rhythm. But anything can happen in racing, and we've seen Taihan Van Ruyen pull off some impressive moves before. I'm excited to see if they can make it happen again.
It's like Danny Van Ruyen has saved all their energy for this final stretch. The leader has just finished the race. A fantastic result for Danny Van Ruyen. Some might say that second place is the first loser, but Taihan Van Ruyen certainly doesn't see it that way. They put in a phenomenal effort and should be proud of their impressive result.
Brilliant. Taihan Van Ruyen showed great skill and determination to take second place.
What a race from Dewald Lambert, showing their skill and determination for a great third place finish.
Fantastic result.
Jano van der Westhuizen, JP Brand, Richard Reshka, and Ernest Heather claimed 4th, 5th, 6th, and 7th. Finishing 8th and 9th is Jacobus Besson and Peter Geldenhuys, with Warren Dodd in 10th. In 11th, it's Kenneth Ella. You've joined us on a breezy day here at Killarney International Raceway, as we're getting ready to kick things off.
The calm before the storm. I don't know about you, Peter, but I'm expecting some hard-fought on-track battles today.
Coming in at second, we have Peter Geldenhuys. The third position belongs to Jacobus Basson.
But they're going to have to be quick out of the blocks if they want to keep up with the top performers.
We're seeing Ernest Heather in the fourth spot.
Ernest Heather will be expecting to bring home solid points.
In the fifth position, we have Richard Reschke ready to tackle the race ahead. From the middle of the pack, we have JP Brand in sixth place on the starting grid. In the middle of the pack, we have Jano van der Westhuizen starting from the seventh position on the grid. As the engines roar to life, Duald Lambert prepares to take off from the 8th position on the starting grid.
Lining up in the mid-pack.
The green flag is waving and he launches races. Let's see who can get out in front and establish an early lead.
The drivers will need to be aggressive but also patient. They can't afford to make any mistakes if they want to stay in the running for a podium finish.
It's a delicate balance, Annie. The best drivers know how to push the limits and make it work to their advantage.
It's never easy to drive that razor's edge between perfection and disaster.
Every lap is an opportunity for War and Don to learn just a little bit more to shave a few tenths or hundredths off their times. Someone get Ernest Heather a strong coffee, as it looks like they have been caught dozing from the get-go. The team won't be pleased with that start, relinquishing places already.
They say laughter is the best medicine, but I'm not sure it'll help Ernest Heather recover from this start. Time to put the pedal to the metal.
You'd think JP Brand was driving a snail instead of a race car, dropping positions at the start like that.
I guess they're trying to prove the old saying, it's not how you start, it's how you finish, but that's a risky strategy, Peter.
There's some intense battling throughout the field as everyone is feeling out the drivers around them. It's a steady race for Kenneth Ella so far. They haven't made any mistakes, and they are maintaining their focus.
That's the mark of a good driver. Kenneth Ella is staying focused on their own race and not getting distracted.
Oh, we've got trouble here. Jano van der Westhuizen was coming up fast on Taihan van Ruyen, but it looks like they're going too fast to make that maneuver.
Absolutely right, Peter. And let's not forget Jano van der Westhuizen has already had a few close calls this race. They need to start driving smarter if they want to finish at all.
Duald Lambert is holding third, but Danny van Ruyen is right on their tail.
Yeah, it's going to be tough for Danny van Ruyen to make up that gap, especially with Duald Lambert defending so well.
This is a thrilling battle as Danny van Ruyen edges closer to Duald Lambert in their fight for P3. A brilliant maneuver from Danny van Ruyen, who has just moved up the field.
Impressive. Danny van Ruyen is really showing their skill and determination out there.
The crowd is on the edge of their seats as JP Brand in 10th chases after Jano van der Westhuizen. The delta is just over a second, and you can feel the tension in the air. JP Brand needs to find a way to close the gap. It doesn't seem like things are going to plan for Jacobus Besson as they have a big gap ahead of them to close at this point in time.
Anything can happen yet, and it usually does. I've certainly...
Hold up, breaking info. I don't think that's the fastest way around KILLARNEY International Raceway. It's a classic case of chasing down the car ahead for Jacobus Besson, who is currently in P8. But Jano van der Westhuizen is not making it easy, and the gap remains over a second. This will require some expert driving from Jacobus Besson.
That's right. Jacobus Besson in 8th knows they have to push to the limit if they want to catch up. But Jano van der Westhuizen is no slouch, and they're going to be pushing just as hard. It's a battle of skill and will out there.
Looking at the lap times, Peter Geldenhuys is not currently on pace with Richard Reschke. Maybe they'll get a chance to see where they can improve.
Hopefully Peter Geldenhuys can find some of that time they're losing and get it back.
This race is getting even more intense. The drivers are pushing each other to the limit.
It's like they're playing a game of chicken, but with cars. And the winner gets to take home the checkered flag and bragging rights.
That's one way to put it. These drivers have to be in top physical and mental shape to compete at this level.
It's like they're training for the Olympics. And like you said, the mental fortitude required to stay focused and alert for the entire race is wild.
I think I need a nap just watching them. Every move counts now as Ernest Heather works to reel in Richard Reshka and overtake for P3. The race is heating up as Jano van der Westhuizen in 7th closes in on Doald Lambert. The gap is just over a second, and I'm sure they are going to do everything possible to try and close the distance. They're not giving up without a fight. The gap between Ernest Heather and Peter Geldenhuis is razor thin as they vie for second in this nail-biting contest. Big gains for Ernest Heather as they move up the field, leaving Peter Geldenhuis behind.
Yes, but they have to keep pushing hard. This race is far from over, and anything can happen. Ernest Heather needs to stay focused and keep driving with skill and determination.
You know, Annie, during a long race like this, how easy is it for a driver to experience a lapse in concentration?
It can be quite easy, Peter. With so many factors to consider and the intense focus required, even the most experienced driver—
Hold that thought. Hold the phone. Oh dear, Kenneth Ella has had an incident. Things are heating up as Tijhan van Rooyen closes in on Peter Geldenhuis. The gap between them is down to practically nothing. It's a tale of two drivers right now, with Tijhan van Rooyen gaining places and Peter Geldenhuis losing them. Seems like Richard Reshka is getting in range of Tijhan van Rooyen. The adrenaline is pumping as Peter Geldenhuis gets within striking distance of Richard Reshka in their race for fourth. Pushing too hard can lead to mistakes, and we're seeing that now. That car is really unsettled as they push for every last bit of speed.
The racing is getting tight between Jacobus Bisson and JP Brand as they battle for P8. No doubt, both drivers know that one mistake could cost them the position. It's a test of nerves as much as skill.
It's a game of cat and mouse out there, with Peter Geldenhuis trying to find the perfect opportunity to make a move on Richard Reshka. The gap is over a second, but every fraction counts. This is where the skill and experience of the drivers really come into play. Jacobus Bisson will need to stay focused and keep pushing, even when the gap seems insurmountable. It's not over until the checkered flag drops. This is getting exciting. Jacobus Bisson is looking for any gap that might open up the position.
JP Brand is doing a great job of defending in the lead, and Jacobus Bisson is pushing hard to close the gap. It's an exciting race and it's not over yet.
It looks like Jacobus Bisson is pushing hard to catch up to JP Brand. That's not a small gap, but Jacobus Bisson has what it takes to challenge for the position.
Absolutely. Jacobus Bisson in 9th will need to be patient and carefully work to reduce that gap without overdriving it, as they can't afford to take unnecessary risks and risk an off or damaging their car. Let's see if they have what it takes to get back into the game here.
It's a game of inches now as JP Brand tails Jano van der Westhuizen closely, ready to capitalize on any mistake. Things are heating up as Jacobus Bisson tries to close the gap to JP Brand. No room for error here. JP Brand is breathing down the neck of Jano van der Westhuizen, waiting for the perfect chance to make their move. Oh, this is getting intense. Jacobus Besson is just a few car lengths behind JP Brand. JP Brand is looking for an opportunity to get round Jano van der Westhuizen.
Rubbing's racing, but let's just hope they don't rub it too hard.
It's a battle of wills out there, with Jacobus Besson trying to outsmart and outmaneuver JP Brand. The gap is slowly closing, but time is running out. Situations like these often lead to a dramatic finish. The battle for 7 is heating up as JP Brand tries to catch Jano van der Westhuizen in P7. A great moment for JP Brand, who has just gained a place and moved up the standings. A setback for JP Brand, who has just been passed.
Yes, but there's still plenty of race left. JP Brand needs to stay calm and focused, and make their move when the time is right.
The tension is building as Tijhan van Ruyen trails behind Ernest Heather. The gap is slowly but surely decreasing, and the pressure is mounting. Ernest Heather is pushing to maintain the lead, while Tijhan van Ruyen is working to close in and challenge for the position. The gap between JP Brand and Jacobus Besson is pretty substantial right now. It's probably going to take a mistake from JP Brand to even allow Jacobus Besson to get a look in.
It's not over till the checkered flag drops though, and it's important they don't lose concentration at this point.
The delta between Tijhan van Ruyen in third and Ernest Heather remains over a second, but Tijhan van Ruyen is not letting up. They're pushing hard and looking for any opportunity to close that gap. There's 12 minutes left in this session to make that happen. It seems like Tijhan van Ruyen is struggling. Their last lap time was a bit off the pace of Ernest Heather. The drivers have been working hard to come up with the perfect race strategy. They've been looking at the weather, the track conditions and the performance of their cars.
Now it's time to put that strategy into action and see if it pays off.
Tijhan van Ruyen has a mountain to climb at the moment to close that gap with Ernest Heather. I expect their only hope at this point is that Ernest Heather makes an error. It's a classic case of chasing down the car ahead for Duald Lambert, who is currently in P6. But Peter Geldenhuys is not making it easy, and the gap remains over a second. This will require some expert driving from Duald Lambert.
It's moments like these that make motorsports so exciting. We're witnessing a battle of skill and strategy between two great drivers, with Duald Lambert in 6th determined to catch up. But we know Peter Geldenhuys isn't just going to hand it to them on a plate. Duald Lambert is going to have to take it. It should be an interesting battle to watch as long as they can close that gap.
It's a game of cat and mouse out there, with Peter Geldenhuys trying to find the perfect opportunity to make a move on Duald Lambert. The gap is over a second, but every fraction counts. Peter Geldenhuys needs to find some speed, or maybe get more consistent. Annie, they have just put in a slower lap than Duald Lambert.
It will be interesting to see if Duald Lambert can keep outpacing Peter Geldenhuys.
The crowd is on the edge of their seats as Tijhan van Ruyen in third chases after Ernest Heather. The delta is just over a second, and you can feel the tension in the air. Taihan Van Ruyen needs to find a way to close the gap.
It's a nail-biting race for sure, with both drivers showing incredible skill and determination. But Ernest Heather is not going to give up their position easily. This is going to be a battle to the very end, with Taihan Van Ruyen in P3 doing everything they can to catch up.
It's looking good for Danny Van Ruyen, sitting in first.
That's right, they can't afford to make any mistakes or let up in their performance. Every point counts in this championship.
The race is heating up as JP Brand in 7th closes in on Peter Geldenhuys. The gap is just over a second, and I'm sure they are going to do everything possible to try and close the distance. They're not giving up without a fight. Wow, Danny Van Ruyen is really pushing hard in these final moments of the race. What a win! This is a historic moment for Danny Van Ruyen, who put on a masterclass in driving today. What a display of skill and precision. Impressive second-place finish for Ernest Heather. Well done to Taihan Van Ruyen for securing 3rd place on the podium. Coming in 4th, 5th, 6th, and 7th we have Richard Reschke, Dould Lambert, JP Brand, and Peter Geldenhuys. Jacobus Besson take 8th. Ninth sees Kenneth Ella.